It was the night of December 29, 1972. Clear skies over Florida. A perfect night for flying. Eastern Airlines Flight 401, a brand new Lockheed L-1011 TriStar, lifted off from New York, bound for Miami. On board were 176 people, families heading home after the holidays, business travelers, and a crew proud to operate one of the most advanced jets of its time. At the controls sat Captain Bob Loft, a veteran pilot known for his composure, and beside him, First Officer Don Repo, younger but equally sharp and steady. As the lights of Miami twinkled on the horizon, everything about the flight seemed ordinary, until a small green indicator light failed to turn on. The light was supposed to confirm that the landing gear was locked in place. Without it, they couldn't safely land. Captain Loft instructed the crew to hold altitude over the dark swamps of the Florida Everglades while they sorted it out. Inside the cockpit, tension grew as the men tried to fix what seemed like a minor eye. Repo leaned forward, removing the light assembly and twisting the tiny bulb to check if it was burnt out. The captain watched the dials carefully. Everything appeared normal: altitude, speed, direction. But in the chaos of trying to fix the light, no one noticed that the autopilot had been accidentally disengaged. The massive jet, silent and graceful, began to descend, slowly, almost imperceptibly, into the blackness below. Passengers in the cabin chatted quietly, unaware that the plane was sinking lower and lower. The crew, still focused on the stubborn light, had no idea they were now less than 1,000 feet above the swamp. When Captain Loft finally looked up, it was too late. The altimeter was dropping fast. He pulled back the yoke, shouting orders, but the jet's belly scraped the marshland seconds later. At 11:42 p.m., Flight 401 slammed into the Everglades, tearing apart in an explosion of metal and fire. The crash was catastrophic. Out of 176 people, 101 lost their lives. Among the survivors was Don Repo, who was pulled out alive but critically injured. Before he succumbed to his wounds, he whispered to a paramedic, "Tell my wife I tried." For days, the swamp burned. Rescue teams waded through waist-deep mud, searching for survivors. The wreckage of Flight 401 became one of the most haunting crash sites in aviation history. Months passed. Investigators discovered that the entire disaster had been caused not by a mechanical fault, but by distraction. A 60-cent light bulb had brought down a multi-million-dollar jet. The case closed, and Eastern Airlines moved on. Or so they thought, to save money. The airline salvaged usable parts from the wreck: ovens, seats, instruments, and cockpit components, and reused them in other L-1011 aircraft in their fleet. That's when something eerie began happening. Flight attendants began reporting strange encounters. On one flight, a crew member saw a uniformed man sitting in a jump seat before takeoff. She greeted him politely, thinking he was an off-duty pilot. Moments later, he vanished. Disturbed, she described him to the captain. When shown a photo of the Flight 401 crew, her face went pale. The man she'd seen was Captain Bob Loft, the pilot who had died in the crash. Not long after, a maintenance worker in an aircraft hangar heard a voice over the intercom while inspecting a jet rebuilt with Flight 401 parts. The voice said clearly, "Check the number 1 engine." The man froze. The plane wasn't powered on, but when the engine was checked, a serious fault was discovered, one that could have caused another crash. Later, when shown photos of the deceased crew, the mechanic pointed without hesitation. "That's him," he said. "That's Don Repo." Reports continued to pour in. Pilots seeing Loft's reflection in cockpit windows. Flight attendants speaking to Repo in the galley before realizing he wasn't real. Passengers claiming to have spoken with men who matched the dead pilot's exact descriptions. Sightings became so frequent that Eastern Airlines quietly ordered all salvaged parts from Flight 401 to be removed from service. And just like that, the hauntings stopped. To this day, investigators and historians remain baffled. Some dismiss it as coincidence or imagination fueled by trauma. But others, including several credible crew members, swear they saw the ghosts of Captain Loft and Don Repo, still flying, still watching, still protecting. They believe that these men didn't haunt the skies out of anger or unrest, but out of duty. Pilots to the end, they stayed to ensure no flight under their watch would meet the same fate. When night falls over the Florida Everglades, locals say you can still hear faint echoes of a jet overhead. And if you listen closely, the calm voice of a pilot whispering from beyond, "Check the number 1 engine."